Hello guys, welcome back to Row Sigma Tutoring. This is going to be the video on the spinal cord. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to say is if you want to review the bone and the meninges, then that is going to be found in the brain overview. But just real quick, so the vertebra is what protects the spinal cord. And so there are 7 cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 fused for the sacrum, and then 4 fused for the coccyx. So that's a good review of that. And then, so let's go straight into the structure. So what I like to do for, if I'm just trying to do it quick, so I like to start with just a plain old circle. And then I like to do this. And then I don't really like how that turned out. So then here, and then boom, there, and then couple lines down the middle, and then a little bit of a split there. Okay, so that is my cervical, well, yes, it is a cervical actually, but a spinal cord cross section. So the first thing I want to talk about is what is gray matter versus what is white matter. So I'm going to shade the center gray, or black rather, I guess. And this is going to be that's going to be the gray matter. So in the spinal cord, the middle is gray and then the outside is white. In the brain, we saw that was still true. The brain had gray and then it had white throughout most of it, but then it also had a layer of gray at the cortex. But at the spinal cord, it is gray in the middle and then white kind of wrapping all the way around it. So that's what we're looking at. And then just remember what is gray versus white. Gray is where the neuronal cell bodies are. And then for this, the gray matter is going to be, that is the lower motor neurons, especially if it's in the ventral, the lower motor neuronal cell bodies. And then the white is going to be your myelinated axons. So yeah, neuronal cell bodies, axons. So these are called your gray horns. So you have your ventral gray horn and you have your dorsal gray horn. And then the white matter, these are called your columns. So you have your anterior column, your lateral or anterior white column, lateral white column, and then dorsal white column. Or anterior column, lateral column, dorsal column. And then sometimes if it's kind of like in this no man's place, this is your anterior lateral column, because it's somewhere in between. Okay, so that covers just let's talk about this too. So the spinal cord also has, going out of it, you have the ventral root, and then you have the dorsal root, and then where they meet up, that is going to be your spinal nerve. So this is your spinal nerve, this is your ventral root, this is your dorsal root. And keep in mind that on the dorsal root, there's going to be a big ganglia there. And keep in mind that a ganglia is a collection of neuronal cell bodies in the periphery. So that is your dorsal root ganglia. And then, yeah, I feel like that covers that. Great. Okay, so something else that you're going to want to know is that the spinal cord looks different depending on what level you're looking at. So what I had just drawn is the cervical. So here's the cervical, and I won't make it as detailed as the other one was. Yeah, I guess I will, just because I'm obsessive like that, and because it highlights what you're looking at here. So let me draw that a little bigger. That'll be obvious why here in just a second. Okay, that looks fine. So this is a cervical, so cervical, and then I will draw a thoracic. So these are hard for me to draw, a little hard for me to draw. And then we'll do that, and then so this would be a thoracic. And then your lumbar sacral, so the lumbar and the sacral ones are going to look very similar. Okay. And then this is your lumbar and your sacral. Lumbar and sacral. Okay, so big differences. You're going to notice that the cervical and the lumbar and sacral ones are bigger compared to the thoracic. And why do you think that is? That is going to be because when you're looking at your spinal cord in the thoracic area and in the lumbar area, the lumbar sacral area, there are going to be enlargements. And that is because those sections of the spinal cord need to be bigger because they have to process information from our upper extremity for the cervical and then lower extremity for the lumbar and the sacral ones. So that's why they're visibly bigger. The thoracic ones, I mean, all they really have to deal with is our trunk. And I mean, you don't have nearly the amount of control and sensation of your trunk as you do your upper and lower extremities. So that's why it's lower. That is also why the gray matter, or the little butterfly looking thing, is much smaller in the thoracic, is because there's not nearly as much going on. Another thing that we could look at is the size of the gray matter itself. So in the lumbar sacral, let's rephrase that. What we could look at is the ratio between gray matter and white matter. So the cervical, it looks like it's roughly 50-50-ish. I mean, my drawing could be better. So what you have going there is the cervical, why there's so much white matter, is because we're still high up in the spine. So all of the sensory information from our legs, trunk, and upper body, they have to go up to the brain, and then all of the motor stuff, whether they're coming out cervical, thoracic, or lumbar, they have to go down. So there's a lot more white matter. But we also have an enlargement in the gray to control all of those muscles. In the thoracic, there's less white matter, but there's significantly less gray matter for that same reason. There's not nearly as many muscles. Or muscles to start, like motor control. And then lumbar sacral, there's significantly less white matter, but we have a lot of muscles that we have to have control over in our lower extremity, so then the gray matter is so much bigger. So if the white gray matter looks roughly 50-50, you're probably looking at cervical. If the gray matter is super, super small, and what you also notice is that there's a little lateral horn, a lateral gray horn in the thoracic, and where the other ones don't really have that unless they're getting close to that thoracic. You'll also see that. And then the lumbar, the gray matter will be huge. So yeah, that's that. And that brings me to an interesting question. What is that lateral horn for in the thoracic, and then lower cervical, and then upper lumbar area? That is going to be for your sympathetic nervous system, because the lateral horn is going to have the neuronal cell bodies that contribute to the sympathetic nervous system. And sympathetic nervous system is which one? Fight or flight, or rest and digest? Fight or flight. That's correct. Very good. All right. I feel like that is sufficient there. So I'm splitting this video up into two different pieces just because the tracks, the three big tracks, are super, super important, so they deserve their own video. So that's what they're going to get. I'll see you in the next one.